Losties, and welcome back to Freckles and Blondie. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randy.
And today we are discussing episode 9 of Lost, Solitary. This episode was directed by, I don't know how to say this, Greg Yaitanes? I don't know.
Me either.
I'm really bad at that.
It's okay.
Anywho, he directed 2 other episodes of Lost, and he's directed a lot of shows. Like, he directed House, Heroes, Grey's Anatomy, Prison Break, Bones. Dude's been around. And it was written by David Fury, who we already know and love from Buffy.
We sure do.
And from Walkabout. So, I don't think it's possible to match the excellence of Walkabout, but I really liked this episode.
It's good. It's a good, solid episode, I think.
That's literally what I wrote. Good,
really?
Solid episode.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. I really like Sayid, and I've really been wondering what his deal is up to this point. And I think it's great timing, right after coming off of the torturing in Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's good timing to talk about Sayid.
Yeah, I agree. Sayid's a great character, so this was very fitting.
Mm-hmm. I know why I'm drawn to Sawyer. I don't know exactly why I'm drawn to Sayid, but I always have been. I always find him really interesting and kind of refreshing compared to other people on the island. I think I like his directness or something.
Yeah, I agree. He's very direct. He's also just very capable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of appealing as well.
He's very capable. He's very rarely involved in petty drama or anything like that. And that kind of stuff always irritates me.
Yeah, I agree. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy.
Yeah. I would definitely be friends with him in real life.
Yeah, me too.
It's funny though, because he's not a good guy, ultimately. I mean,
you don't think so? I think he is.
Okay, that's using the word ultimately is really, it sounds very final.
Yeah, it does.
I don't mean like that. I just mean he's done so many bad things, and he's not a clearly good guy.
Oh, I wouldn't say clearly good, but I feel like once we get to the end of this episode, I feel like he has a good heart.
Yeah.
That might be too cheesy to say, but he has, I know he has good intentions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, when it comes down to it, his goodness wins out.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it, and we can talk about that more as we go.
Yep, let's do it.
We open with Sayid sitting alone on the beach. He's looking at a woman in pictures when he sees something in the sand. It's a rope that leads from the ocean inward towards the jungle. Sayid picks it up and he follows it in. Jack is quite roughly changing Sawyer's bandages. I'm sure he didn't mean to hurt Sawyer at all.
Okay.
Sawyer asks why Jack is helping him, if it's to ease his guilt over letting Sayid torture him, and Jack says no, his conscience is clear. He's here because nobody else wants anything to do with Sawyer. Unfortunately, that's not true, and Sawyer reminds him that Kate does. Jack walks away.
Sawyer apparently learned nothing last week. It's just continuing to be, I don't know, very frustrating.
That was your whole problem last week, was he didn't learn anything, right?
Right. It was my whole problem, and this scene pretty much reinforces that fact immediately.
It does. And this scene also is what I was worried would happen with Jack.
What do you mean by that?
So, last week at the end of the episode, I felt like Sawyer and definitely Sayid were sitting around at the end thinking about what they had done and feeling guilty. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know if Sawyer was feeling guilty, but Sayid certainly was. He banished himself.
Right.
And I was hoping that Jack would feel some sort of guilt as well. Whoa, we went a little bit too far there. So I don't like that he doesn't seem to feel guilty unless he's maybe just not going to tell Sawyer if he feels it.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I would read it.
But why wouldn't he tell Kate?
That is a good point.
Like, I get saving face around Sawyer, but he could say, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously still a little upset with Jack that they even went through with it. So maybe that he just is, in his mind, he's just giving her time to, I don't know, to cool off. But, I mean, yeah, Jack would, if he is feeling guilty, he's definitely not going to talk to Sawyer about it, who's continuing to taunt him and just be annoying.
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't expect him to do that. It's been 2 days since Sayid left, and Kate is worried. Jack doesn't want her to worry, and he tells her that Sayid will return when he finds what he's looking for. She tells him he left because of what happened with Sawyer, to which Jack responds, "Accidents happen." This, of course, makes no sense, as nothing about torturing a man is an accident, and Kate tells him so. Jack walks away, telling her Sayid can take care of himself. That's a weird thing to say, okay?
What, the accidents happen part?
Yeah. What does he mean? Is like, what's an accident?
I took it as an accident, the fact that Sayid stabbed Sawyer in the arm.
Oh.
I don't think that was ever the intention.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I think that that's the most generous way to read it.
Yeah, I mean, because, you could argue that, well, Sayid didn't intend to stab Sawyer, but he did intend to torture him, and they were all fine with that, so...
Yeah, I think that's definitely the focus, is the actual torturing. The line is weird for him to say accidents happen. I don't understand what he's even talking about, but Kate points it out, so it's meant to be confusing, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Jack is in denial. I think he, made a call that he thought was the right call for the right reasons, and he doesn't want to go back on it.
Yeah, and he's probably feeling a little bit justified because, I mean, one, he wasn't the one who actually tortured Sawyer. And two, like I said last week, Sawyer didn't really do anything to help his case at all. Not that he deserved to be tortured, but,
Well, see, I would think that he'd feel more justified if it turned out Sawyer had the inhalers and torturing him is what got the inhaler. But since nothing came of it, it seems even less justifiable.
Right, but, I mean, that's true.
I see what you're saying. I just feel like I look at it differently. We could talk about that whole incident for forever.
Yeah, we could have done a 5-hour podcast episode on that episode.
It's so morally complicated.
It really is.
There's so many things that happen. Like, there's the act that Sayid does. There's the fact that Sawyer could just speak up. There's Jack watching on. There's Jack giving permission. There's Kate wanting them to stop. Like, there's just so much factoring into it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that the show is not, brushing it under the rug and we're addressing it and we haven't forgotten last week. So many shows seem to do that, where it's just like, all right, moving on to the problem of this week. This is a show that deals with consequence and we feel everyone's finger on that.
Right. They deal with consequences so well. So yeah, I mean, Sayid has literally banished himself from the group, which is pretty drastic, all things considered. So
yeah, and maybe that is part of why Kate wants to see some sort of remorse from Jack, because Sayid has taken a very dramatic response to that, and I think she just wants something from Jack. Mm-hmm. Especially since Jack's the one she has feelings for.
Can we just go back to the moth where they were all cute and happy at the end? Can we just go back there, please?
Back in the good old days.
I know.
Like a week ago on Lost Island.
Yeah.
Sayid is following the rope when he encounters a wire. He carefully steps over it and into another trap, which pulls him upside down by one leg. We cut to the title sequence. When we return, hours seem to have passed as Sayid is still hanging upside down, asleep, and it's nighttime. He hears steps coming towards him and is abruptly cut to the ground. Someone steps closer and he passes out. What were you thinking, the first time you saw this? Do you even remember?
I can't really remember for this particular episode, but it's intense. It's scary.
It is. It's so eerie. And I remember being so excited at the prospect of there being anyone else on this island. Because this is like our first encounter with anything or anyone that's not to do with this plane crash. So I just remember feeling really jazzed.
Yeah, I mean, this episode is kind of pivotal. It's a turning point. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but we get to meet Rousseau, and she's got a whole camp set up. It's intense. It's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely is. It broadens our world, like, dramatically.
Yeah, I wrote that exact same thing.
Especially as she gives you her history. Mm-hmm. Jack is examining random passenger number 14's rash. I don't know. I just gave him a name.
Yeah.
He needs a name.
That's a good name for him.
Random passenger 14. I'm not sure exactly what he is doing for this man because it seems to be Sun who is handing him aloe and taking care of his arm. Hurley laughs because Jack tells the man not to stress. Jack says he has enough on his plate without having to worry about hypochondriacs. Hurley says everyone is really tense and needs something to do. Sayid is really tense. He is laying bound on a table beneath a hanging light bulb. He hears, "Where is Alex?" over and over again. And when he says he doesn't know, he is suddenly electrocuted. This scene also is really, it changes a lot. To see that she has like electricity and a house.
Right. There's lights. It's like, what the? It's very surprising.
It is. It's a very quick little scene, but just the small details everywhere tell you so much. We cut to flashback where Sayid is in the Republican Guard. He's interrogating a man accused of planting a bomb that killed 2 soldiers. The man vomits in response to Sayid's questions. Outside, Sayid tells his superior officer, Omar, that the man clearly doesn't know anything. Omar agrees, but likes the way Sayid handled himself in the interrogation. He wants to transfer him to the intelligence division. As Omar is talking, Sayid sees a beautiful woman, obviously a prisoner, walking and surrounded by guards. I really love how we mirror Sayid torturing and being tortured.
Good point.
All through the episode, it goes back and forth so nicely to see him in that position of power and without it.
Yeah, it's a good contrast. It's a startling introduction to his backstory to start with him torturing this guy who he later admits is clearly innocent.
Right. I was surprised to find that he was a soldier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just, I don't know what I expected him to be, but I mean, as we see in this episode, following orders doesn't seem to be Sayid's thing. So it seems strange for him to be a soldier.
Yeah, I mean, it made a little bit more sense to me because, like we said earlier, he's just no nonsense kind of guy. He comes in, gets the job done, doesn't mess around, doesn't...
That's true.
You know?
He's very efficient.
Yeah, so that kind of...
Very pragmatic.
Right, it makes sense with that he's a soldier, in my mind.
Yeah, definitely true. Back on the beach, Locke and his new hunting buddy Ethan bring Hurley a few extra pieces of luggage that they found in the jungle. Hurley begins rummaging through them. Walt asks if he can come along hunting with Locke so that he can learn, and Michael yells at him to get back in bed. Hurley pulls something out of the luggage and says, "Whoa, dude." I'm going to quote Hurley so many times on this podcast just because I like, "Whoa, dude."
Yeah. He probably says that at least 100 times.
He's the only person who could use dude in so many ways. He has like a dude for every occasion.
He does. It's great.
There's dude. Dude!
It's so interesting in this episode where, I mean, we're only like, 5 or 10 minutes in and we've already introduced 3 new characters, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
It's surprising.
At least Ethan gets a name.
True.
Maybe the other guy did get a name and I just didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, I can't remember if he pops up later.
I'm sure he has a name in the script. I just didn't look at it.
Yeah, me either.
It didn't really seem necessary.
No, it didn't.
But, like, Locke goes out of his way to kind of introduce Ethan.
Oh, I can't wait for next week.
Gosh, Randy, why are you talking about that?
I don't know. Never mind. I will say about the scene with Walt and when he's asking to go with Locke in the jungle. Poor Walt. He must be really bored if he's volunteering to go hunting in the jungle at night with Locke.
I mean, if you're a kid, that probably sounds like a very grand adventure.
I suppose. I feel like if you're a kid, that sounds terrifying, but...
Yeah, but kids don't realize when situations are terrifying sometimes.
Good point. Good point.
They're just like, sounds fun to go traipsing through the jungle at night.
Right.
I remember when I was a kid, I always thought it sounded so fun to go swimming in the ocean at night.
Oh.
And that's horribly dangerous, but at the time it just sounded really adventurous and fun.
Yeah, not only horribly dangerous, that's just terrifying. Have you ever gone to the beach at night? It's so scary.
It's shady. Yes, yeah. I have. And I learned my lesson.
Me and my dad, whenever we go to the beach, because we go every year, we always make a point, at least one night, to just walk down there, just to be down there. Because it's always very scary, but kind of cool. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, I was approached because somebody thought I was a prostitute, and I ran really far away from that person.
Oh my God.
Yes, Kristen was with me, and he was like, "How much for both of you?" And we were like, "What?"
Dude, you could have gotten murdered. Oh my God.
I know, we were really scared.
Jesus.
We were in high school, I think.
Wow.
We like ran back to the beach house.
Wow. Yeah. That's terrifying.
Fun-filled story. Anywho, Sayid is still being electrocuted by our unknown assailant, repeating he doesn't know who Alex is. He's just a survivor from a plane crash. He mentions the French woman's recording that's been playing for 16 years. Has it really been that long? She responds. But she still doesn't believe his story, telling him that she knows what he is. And she hits him again. Sayid wakes that morning and learns that the woman's name is Rousseau. She's looking through his things, and he's wondering how she could be sending out a broadcast with only the small batteries he sees. She tells him it broadcasts from somewhere else on the island, but they control it now. The others like you. She asks Sayid who the girl in the photograph is. He tells her name is Nadia. I feel like they have such a weirdly respectful like conversation. Even as she's accusing him of all this stuff, he's so chill about it.
Yeah, I feel like he's treating the situation very cautiously.
Yes, he's like keeping calm, trying to keep her calm, I think. He's so smart.
Yeah, because obviously maybe he's never been on the other side of the whole torture situation, but he kind of knows how to feel his way out of this. And I think he immediately gets vibes from her that, she's a little insane and I should just go very carefully with this so she doesn't kill me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think he knows how to do what he can to make her sympathize with him. Mm-hmm. Using her name, that kind of thing. It's really when he hears Nadia's name that she's a person once he realizes who she is.
Right. He's so smart.
We transition to a flashback, and the picture that Sayid carries is now in his hands as Omar tells Sayid that Nadia is connected to the bombing, and he needs to figure out what she knows. When he enters the room where she's sitting, Nadia speaks to him by name, asking why he doesn't remember her in the schoolyard, always pushing him down because he ignored her. He says he remembers her, and that she had enough attention from her family's wealth and her charm. Nadia laughs that even a child would think of such a thing, but Sayid has always been wiser than his years. He tells her she's now a traitor to her country, and they need to return to the matter at hand. He asks about the bombing and threatens to hurt her. She says she knows he will hurt her. This isn't her first interrogation. She shows him her injuries, where she's been burnt with acid, pierced with a drill, flayed with a whip by the Republican Guard. He says if she's innocent, he's sorry. She tells him to go on and do his work, but she won't be telling him anything. Nadia is a boss.
Yes, she's fantastic.
What an amazing first impression. I immediately love her.
Yeah, me too. The actress who plays her is great.
It's startling because Sayid is our hero, really. And yet, I'm immediately on her side. And I know that she's in the victim position here. And that he's the torturer. But he could be right. And she's a traitor to the country. And she could be doing all these horrible crimes that I don't know about. But I just don't get that sense from her at all. And I just have immediate empathy for her.
Yeah, I do too. There's something about her that's so engaging. And then Sayid doesn't really help his case when he says, if you're innocent, then I'm sorry. You know, he's...
Right. Because even if she's not innocent, being burned with acid and pierced with a drill, like, these are not things you do to any human being, no matter what they did.
Right.
But I don't know if Sayid looks at it that way. Because, like you said, he says, if you're innocent, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's harsh.
It's very harsh. But, like, he feels, on the island, he feels so guilty about hurting Sawyer. So, I mean, I think he's learned from this time period in his life. He's not this guy anymore.
Right, because don't they mention that this was, like, 7 years ago?
Oh, you could be right. I'm just so bad at numbers. I don't ever remember them.
Oh.
I never know what episode we're on or anything.
It's okay. That could be wrong, but I feel like when he does say that later on, and yeah, you can definitely tell that this was, he's kind of a different person now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. He's matured.
Right.
And last episode he definitely slipped back into this, but he's matured enough to know it's not right.
Right.
Back with the French woman, Sayid tells her he was a soldier a long time ago. So yes, it was a long time ago.
Okay.
He asks who Alex is once again. She still doesn't trust Sayid and asks if there were 40 other passengers who also crashed. Why is he alone? He says he did something that he is ashamed of. Rousseau wants to know about Nadia, but Sayid says she's dead because of him. Rousseau, moved by compassion it seems, grasps Sayid's face and says she is sorry and she wants to show him something. I found this so startling when she grasped his face and she genuinely looks like really sorry for him.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I like the way that this actress plays her because the way she touches his face, and I think she might do it one time later on, it's almost like she's forgotten what personal boundaries are, being alone this long.
She's so desperate to touch another person. She makes excuses to do it all the time.
Yeah, it's such good detail. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and her kind of flitting back and forth between not trusting him at all and being sympathetic, it kind of adds to this sort of crazy vibe she has about her. Mm-hmm. She's fascinating. Back at the caves, Walt is bored and wants to take Vincent to the beach. Michael tells Walt that he needs to learn to entertain himself. Hurley is working on a secret project.
Sorry.
I can hear your sigh of disdain.
You know, we're going to have a conversation at the end of this episode about Michael's parenting skills because they are severely lacking in this episode, if you ask me.
I completely agree.
Okay.
Yeah. He handles Walt as wrong as possible
in
pretty much every turn in this episode.
It is so disappointing.
It really is. Poor Walt. I would be bored too.
Right. You're on an island. What is he supposed to do? And it's not like you're going to let him go anywhere.
Right. He wants to take Vincent to the beach, the one place known to be pretty safe.
Yeah.
Come on. Hurley is working on a secret project of some sort, and it turns out that Michael's secret project is a plumbing design for the cave that would separate their drinking and bathing water. Jack is super psyched about the water plan, when Charlie invites them all to Hurley's brand new golf course.
Yay!
It's so cute. I love it.
Fantastic.
And I love Hurley's presentation of the golf course. He's like, dudes, listen, our lives suck. And it's so true.
Yeah, he just tells it how it is. It's great.
Hurley just gets right to the heart of the matter.
He does.
Surviving isn't enough. People need quality of life.
Yeah, and like most people wouldn't even think about that. So
yeah. I mean, Jack and Michael are appalled that Hurley has been wasting his time on a golf course.
Right.
But, I mean, we'll see later. It turns out to be exactly what everybody needs.
Yeah, Hurley's such a good, like, every group needs a Hurley, you know?
Yes. I need a Hurley in my life. Maybe I have one. I should think about that. Who's my Hurley?
They're very important people.
They are.
I also love when Charlie says, you didn't hear about the polar bear? I think he's talking to Michael. Like, just the way he says that, it's like, where have you been?
And Michael, like, hardly questions it at all.
Yeah. He's like, of course there's polar bears here.
You know, just another thing. Rousseau shows Sayid a broken music box from her love, Robert. Sayid offers to fix it if she'll untie him. Rousseau jerks into action at this and grabs a syringe, really freaking Sayid out. She asks what's written in Arabic on the back of Nadia's photograph. She ignores Sayid's protests and injects him with something. Michael and Jack are strategizing because this golf game is suddenly very serious business. I love that scene. The cut where you can't like see what they're talking about. They just look really worried about something. And obviously, you know, it's just a golf hole.
Right. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of on Buffy when they always use those dramatic irony cuts. And who's writing this episode? David Fury. So
you're so right.
You know?
I hadn't even thought about that.
I love that.
Master of the ironic cutaway on Buffy. Yep.
Uses it
That's
over
hilarious.
And over.
And that's not normal for Lost. Like, that does not really show up a lot.
I agree. I can't really remember another time where it does.
Yeah. Definitely not their normal MO. I feel like it's almost more effective because they don't do it that often.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, Buffy tends to overdo it just a tad sometimes.
Definitely. Suddenly, Mr. Hypochondriac appears, interrupting their game, but asking to join in. This is also the scene where Hurley and Charlie are like swinging the golf clubs around, taunting Jack and Michael.
Yeah.
It's so hilarious.
I
can always picture them doing that.
Yeah, it's great. I read online when I was looking up stuff about this episode that Jorge Garcia and Dominic Monaghan actually improvised a lot of the stuff they did in this episode. Which is...
Of course they did.
I know.
That's great.
Yeah. So cute.
This is all very welcome contrasts to the very serious situation Sayid is going through. It's a lot like last week where we had a super tense storyline and then we had Claire and Charlie with the peanut butter. Mm-hmm. And here we have the golf course that kind of like brings you down and levels you from the intensity of Sayid, because even Sayid's backstory is very stressful.
Yeah, and they need this contrast for sure because it's so intense.
I've never noticed how like well Lost balances out those heavy storylines with something light.
Yeah, and I always forget the lighter storylines because last week I had forgotten that was when the whole Claire and Charlie and the peanut butter thing happened. And this week when I was sitting down to watch this episode, I kind of thought in my mind, I was like, oh, is this just all about Sayid and Rousseau and his backstory? Because this is going to be a little depressing. I'd forgotten about the golf storyline completely.
Yeah. Well, I think something about the structure of the show in that it focuses on a character per week. You just remember that character and what that character went through. Yeah. And everything else just kind of blurs together.
That's a good point.
At least that's the way I remember it.
Yeah, me too. I can always tell you, like, if you named any episode from this season, I could tell you who it's about, but I couldn't really tell you anything else about what happens on the island.
Right. Yeah. It turns out that Rousseau sedated Sayid just so that she could safely move him, freeing his hands but binding his leg instead. This girl ain't messing around. Caution is her middle name. She can't believe that Sayid would offer to help her after everything she's done to hurt him. Sayid says he'll help her if she tells him her first name. It's Danielle. Sayid picks up the music box to begin working and asks how she came to be on the island. She says she was part of a science team with Robert. They were 3 days away from Tahiti when their equipment began to malfunction and a storm ran them aground. Their ship was damaged beyond repair. For 2 months they survived until one day they were coming back from the Black Rock when the others, the carriers, they killed them all. She never sees them, she just hears them out in the jungle whispering. Sayid suddenly looks upset. "You think I'm insane?" she asks, and he says, "You've just been alone for too long." He looks disappointed, and we cut back to Nadia. I think you were right before. Like, he's definitely role reversing the interrogation here by wanting to know her first name and know how she came to be on the island. He's like definitely personalizing their situation.
Yeah.
But I think he's also like really just curious, where did you come from?
Right. I mean, who wouldn't be? They've been on this island for 2 weeks and all of a sudden she's got syringes and a bed and electricity, and he definitely wants to know what her deal is.
Sure. And then he's so disappointed because she starts saying things that sound so crazy to him that he just thinks he can't believe her anymore. I mean, that's how I interpret it, the way he looks at her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely thinks she's crazy. And who wouldn't? I mean, she's basically implying that she's been alone for 16 years. I mean, it surprises me that she's as sane as she is in this episode.
That's true.
I mean, the fact that she can even have a competent conversation with him at all is so impressive.
Yeah. And her story is, I mean, it sounds crazy. I see why Sayid doesn't really believe it.
Right. It doesn't make any sense right now.
Yeah. She's like talking about other things or other people that she like never sees but hears. I would definitely think that this is some crazy person hearing voices.
Right. Ooh, I wonder what would have happened if she had talked to Locke. I wonder if he would have believed her right away.
Ooh.
Since he's so at one with the island.
Yeah. It would be interesting because she clearly sees the island as a threat and he does not.
Ooh, good point.
So I wonder how they would reconcile that. I don't know if he would believe her or not because he doesn't seem to see anything bad.
Huh.
I mean, he's seen whatever the monster is.
Uh-huh.
And he still doesn't seem to think there's anything bad.
Well, he's still alive, so...
True. True. But the monster did kill the pilot.
Yeah, also true.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. Not a theory, but idea.
Yeah, I just feel like if they had had this conversation, it would have gone a lot differently.
Yeah. I think she stumbled upon the best possible person to stumble upon, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine if she'd stumbled upon Sawyer? Oh, God.
I wasn't even thinking about Sawyer. No, but Sayid, like, understands how to talk to someone who is trying to get information out of you, and...
Right.
Like, he can play this game better than anyone.
Right, definitely.
And there's, like, almost an argument that Sayid deserves this, It's almost like a retribution kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Like, this is his punishment that he's taking for what he did to Sawyer.
Uh-huh. I mean, I don't know if I see it that way, but I can see the argument for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Back with Nadia, Sayid is sneaking her food. She's been a prisoner for weeks. Sayid wants her to identify some men in photographs. He tells her this isn't a game. She says, but you keep playing it, pretending to be someone I know you're not. Because she's awesome. And she knows Sayid is awesome too.
Yeah, I feel such a connection between them. And this is only, the second scene they've had together?
I know, it's crazy.
It is crazy. Oh, I love it.
I still can't quite articulate why I feel that way, but yeah, there's definitely a strong connection between them. She just seems to get him.
Right.
I mean, I guess they went to school together and she just has been watching him a long time, but she seems to understand exactly who he is or who he could be.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the feeling that she knows him as well as anyone, really.
Right. And expects better of him.
Right. Maybe I feel like at the end of this episode that Sayid is a good person because Nadia has so much faith in him. Like, that's one of the reasons, you know? Because I trust
makes
her
a lot of sense.
Judgment.
Yeah. I think that's a lot like when we were talking last week about Sawyer and I was saying that he needed someone to believe in him. This is kind of what I feel like he needs.
Oh, okay.
Someone to see that he's better than the guy he's pretending to be. He needs a Nadia.
He does.
Everyone needs a Nadia.
He really does. He would be so much better.
If he just had someone who expected him to be better, maybe he would rise to that occasion.
Yeah. I still wish he could get there on his own. But yeah, that's interesting.
It's interesting that we were talking about that and then Nadia is doing exactly that for Sayid.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never thought about that until just now.
Yeah, me either. That's crazy.
We love you even more, Nadia.
We do.
Back on the beach, Boone, Shannon, and Kate are amused at the prospect of Jack playing golf. Sawyer points out the irony of a doctor playing golf, but Kate knows that really Sawyer just wants to join in on the fun. Sawyer says nobody will want him there, and she responds, "From one outcast to another, I'd make more of an effort." Which is, like, funny because, at least on this island, Kate is, like, as far from an outcast as possible.
I wrote down the same thing, and
she's, like, Miss Popular.
Right, and it seems like when Sawyer says that, or Sawyer says that, right? Like, who says that? From one outcast to another? No, Kate says that.
Yeah, she says that to him.
Right, she seems to fully believe that. Obviously, she says it, but I don't.
But I think
read her
she's
that
talking
way.
about life off of the island.
Okay, but I mean, Sawyer doesn't know about her past, right?
No, I don't think, no. So I don't know why. It makes sense for her to say that because we know that off the island, yeah, she was an outcast, living on the run. She kind of has to be.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't really make much sense here on the island and shouldn't make much sense to Sawyer.
Right, he should be confused by this.
But maybe in their, like, weird connection, he kind of feels that from her. Some sort of camaraderie.
Yeah, they do have this connection that I just
can't stand.
Can't deny that it exists. You can see it in Sawyer's face, just this little bit of humanity. And I feel like it only comes out when he's talking with Kate, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like both of them always have kind of like a glimmer in their eyes when they talk to each other. Like, I don't want to sound too cheesy, but really, they both look like they have some sort of secret thing between them.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because up to this point, like, there's really no reason for that other than just, I guess, natural chemistry.
Yeah. I mean, it's just different.
It's different from her connection with Jack. Is
right.
That what you mean?
Because I feel like Kate and Sawyer are more similar as people than Jack and Kate. Like, on paper, Jack and Kate, I don't think make a lot of sense, but they have such, to me, an intense connection. Do you know what I mean? That's just different.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have always looked at the three of them as Kate and Jack are the classic opposites attract thing, and Kate and Sawyer are similar people. They're just, like, cut from the same cloth, and they just gravitate to each other for that reason.
Yeah, they should have known it was never going to work. They're too similar to each other.
I don't know what you're talking about, Randy, because that's a major spoiler.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that anything's going to happen between them. I'm just saying that they should have known. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know.
As usual, when Kate and Sawyer and or Jack comes up, we have gotten drastically off topic.
So sorry.
It's hard not to.
It really is.
Sayid has fixed the music box and Danielle is thrilled. Sayid surreptitiously palms the screwdriver he used to fix it and asks her to free him. She says he needs her. It's not safe out there in the jungle. They hear a super scary roar sound, and Danielle grabs her gun, saying that if they're lucky, it's just a bear. Sayid warns her that it could be the monster, but she says there's no such thing as monsters.
What are we supposed to make of that line? That kind of threw me when she said that.
Yeah. I think something about saying that it's a monster makes it seem almost like imaginary or fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And she seems so like grounded in
reality?
I almost said grounded in reality,
Yeah.
but no. That's not what I mean.
Okay.
She definitely believes that whatever this thing is, it's real and it's very dangerous. So the reality in that way.
Okay, I got it.
I don't know. How do you interpret that? I don't feel like I have a strong read on it.
Yeah, I didn't have a good answer for it. It just threw me when she said it because, you know, in the previous scenes, she's been talking about the carriers and whispers in the jungle. And then so when she ends the scene and the way she looks at Sayid with like such conviction and she says there's no such thing as monsters, I was like, it just seemed very, very authoritative and significant, you know?
Maybe it's in a way trying to solidify her sanity. Mm-hmm. I'm not crazy. I don't believe in like monsters. I believe in the very real thing that is out there.
Yeah, I like that read. That's a good point.
I just thought of that.
I like that.
I didn't even think about it when I listened or watched because it's not a podcast. Omar tells Sayid that it's been a month. It's time to execute Nadia. Sayid goes to her cell and tosses her a black hood. Back on the island, Sayid has managed to free himself while Danielle is out bear hunting. He takes a map and a rifle, leaving his photograph of Nadia behind, which I found really interesting.
Me too.
Why didn't he grab that?
Yeah, I mean, he stopped to grab a few other things.
Yeah, just like toss it in your bag, dude.
Right, and you know how important that picture was to him.
Yeah. Oh, it's so strange. Maybe he thinks that Danielle needs the photograph more than he does. Do you think he's thinking this deeply? Or did he just forget?
I mean, I don't think so.
She definitely seems hung up on Nadia. She asks about Nadia constantly.
That's true. That's a good point. Maybe it was out of
He's just
kindness.
leaving her some company.
Right.
Here you go.
God, that's so sad.
It is really sad. Back at the golf tournament, Kate wants in, and it seems all of Lost Island is there, cheering on the players. Kate says she almost didn't recognize Jack. He's actually smiling. Jack is amazed that he has been going crazy, sometimes literally, losing sleep trying to make people feel safe. But Hurley builds a golf course, and suddenly everyone has forgotten all of their problems. I'm glad he sees the irony in that.
Yeah, it's funny. And Charlie and Hurley are great again.
Yeah. I think it's a good lesson that, like, maybe Jack shouldn't feel the pressure to take everything on and, you know, let other people utilize their strengths. Like, clearly Hurley's strength is to help people feel good.
Yeah, he should just focus on what he's good at and let everyone else focus on what they're good at.
Right, exactly. He doesn't need to make, like, everything his problem. And I feel like he does that a lot. He just naturally takes everything on.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to be a good leader, so it's hard.
Right, and a good leader needs to delegate.
Yeah, but he didn't want this job, so...
That's true. I mean, dude, he's just learning. Like, this is just another lesson.
Yeah.
Michael seems to literally have forgotten all of his problems while playing golf. He has completely forgotten Walt back at the caves. When Walt appears, he asks if he wants to join their game, but Walt doesn't want to. Michael tells him, okay, I'll play with you later, and he returns to the game.
Without even giving him more than 30 seconds of his time.
I know.
Doesn't even watch him walk away to the trees. What are you doing, Michael?
Poor Walt. He's just like, dude, I'm here.
Right. And you can see he kind of feels intimidated. He doesn't want to play golf in front of all these adults. Like, he's a little scared.
Yeah. And, you know, what kid wants to play golf anyway? Probably doesn't sound very fun.
Exactly. And also just the fact that earlier Walt asked Michael if he could take Vincent to the beach, and Michael was like, no, I'm not doing that alone. And now he's just like, bye, see you later. Go.
Right.
I don't know how far the golf course is from the caves, but he definitely has to walk through some part of the forest to get there. And Michael just has no problem with this whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not an eye shot.
It's ridiculous.
It is. It's so sad. His parenting skills are really lacking.
They are. And I'm trying to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, I know he just became Walt's dad a couple weeks ago, but
I think it's this forgetfulness and carelessness in combination with his controlling manner, not letting him do any of the other things he wants to do, that makes it difficult.
Right. And he could have fixed it a little bit if he had he did apologize to Walt, but if he had said, okay, sorry, I forgot you existed for a couple hours. Now we can go hang out now. What do you want to do? But instead he was just like, bye, I'm going to play more golf.
Yeah.
It's just disappointing.
Exactly. Running through the jungle, Sayid encounters Danielle. He holds the rifle and tells her to put her gun down, but instead she raises it to meet him. Back in Iraq, Sayid dismisses the rest of the guards as he's walking Nadia down the hall. He suddenly bursts into action, explaining to Nadia how she's going to escape. She wants him to join her, but he says for desertion, they would kill his family. He's not as brave as she is. She says that he is, and when Omar approaches, asking what's going on, Sayid shoots him as he calls for help. Omar seems to die instantly. Sayid shoots himself in the leg, telling Nadia to take his gun and go. She writes a note on the back of her photo, and she runs. So this is the big moment for Sayid, where he does the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, this tells me all I need to know about Sayid and his good intentions.
Yeah.
He kills Omar, his superior / friend, and then shoots himself just so Nadia can escape. That's so much. That's so intense.
Right. It really is. He admires her, and I think obviously loves her, right?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
It's interesting because, he carries her picture around, and, just by that fact alone, we would think, oh, he loves this girl. There is not a lot that shows that. This act of selflessness, it does in a way, but there's never really a lot of romantic stuff between them,
Yeah, that's true. They just have such an intense connection that's almost immediate.
Yeah, it's like, I think it is romantic. It's just almost implied.
Right.
She talks about pushing him down on the playground because she liked him, but that's about all we get. So it just makes me wonder, is he doing this because he loves her? Is he doing this because he admires her, or because he believes her, or thinks she's innocent? There's so many reasons that he could be doing this.
Yeah, I've always read it as he loves her intensely, because to kill someone and then shoot yourself, I feel like you'd have to love that person immensely to do something that drastic,
Yeah. I think I would have appreciated a scene where we see that happen. See the beginnings of him falling in love with her.
Oh,
because he doesn't even know who she is when this starts 1 month ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been interesting to see that evolution.
Yeah, you like some more scenes between them when he's bringing her food or whatever and talking to her, stuff like that.
Yeah, or torturing her. We don't really see any of that. And that's probably good. It might be hard to watch, but I think it would be interesting to see what it is that happens between the two of them over the course of that month.
I don't really get the feeling that he tortured her. Do you get that feeling?
Oh, I thought he had.
Did he say that?
He said he was going to, and she said, I know you will, and then we cut. So I just thought that he had been.
You're right. That's possible. I always just read it as I mean, the scene where he's bringing her food and she's like touching his hand and, you know, she says something like, you know, then I love when you come to visit me. This is really the only part of my day. That's good. And then when she, I guess, I don't know if we've gotten to it yet, but when she leaves him that picture of her, I mean, I get the feeling she wouldn't have done all of that if he had been continually torturing her all these weeks. But I could be wrong.
I think this is just why I want a scene.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure what happened between them. I feel like he couldn't be not torturing her because everyone would be like, what are you doing? You know, for a month, they wouldn't just let him be bringing her food.
But he could be lying about that. I mean, there's no one.
Could be.
He could be by himself when he's like going to see her every day.
Right.
I feel like just the way they ended, it's so loving and, you know, you'll find me in the next life, if not in this one. That's what she writes on the photograph. If he'd been torturing her, then my opinion of Nadia just went down a lot. Because, no, if that had been the case, she should have, like, punched him in the face or shot him before he left and been like, bye.
Gosh, my brain is, like, melting because I've never even considered that he didn't torture her.
I've never considered that he did. Because then their whole relationship and this whole ending is just kind of awful. And the fact that he has her picture is just more awful.
Oh. You see, like, the way I always, like, played it out in my head is that he did torture her, but, like, that he would go easy on her and bring her lots of extra food and, you know, because when he brings her the food, she looks, like, very weak. And I don't know if it's just because she's hungry, but I just have always assumed it was because she's, you know, been interrogated for weeks.
Yeah, but she's been in like a dark room for weeks.
Yeah.
Probably with like very little food.
I mean, it makes more sense for you to be right. I just haven't ever, I don't know why I never thought like he wasn't torturing her.
I mean, that's so interesting to me. If I had ever read it that way, maybe that's why you think at the end of this episode, Sayid's not a good guy, because that changes everything for me. That changes how I feel about Sayid, how I feel about him and Nadia. No, I don't.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Huh.
I mean, I could be lying to myself. Yeah, me too. Feeling very conflicted now.
I know. But that's the thing is like, it's really a huge mystery what happens in that month from the time she gets brought in to the time that she is supposed to be executed.
Yeah.
Like, clearly they have fallen for each other, but why? Was it despite torture? Because that would be some really powerful love.
That would be so messed up. Ugh, I can't read it like that.
I think you're right. It's a really sick way to read it.
It is. Good Lord.
Something's wrong with me.
No, I didn't mean that. It's just so interesting that you never even considered the other possibility.
I don't know why. And I love Sayid too. It makes
right.
no sense for this to have never occurred to me.
So I feel like if you had always read it like this, you would kind of hate Sayid. I would if I had read it like that.
Nope. When Sayid attempts to shoot Danielle, the gun clicks but does not shoot. She tells him there's no firing pin and that Robert never noticed it was missing either when she shot him. Sayid protests, but you loved him. He was sick, she says. It took them, one after the other. She had no choice but to kill them all. They were already lost. She tells Sayid she can't let him go. It's too nice to have someone to talk to touch. Sayid tells her, suddenly, that the writing on the back of the photo says, "You'll find me in the next life, if not this one." Sayid tells her that the more he holds on to the idea of Nadia being alive, the more he pulls away from the people who are actually around him. But he needs those people's help if he's ever going to leave this place. Danielle sees the meaning in what he's saying and puts her gun down, but she refuses Sayid's offer to join them back at camp. She warns him to watch the people back at camp very closely. As she walks away, Sayid asks again who Alex was. She says Alex was her child and disappears into the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, this scene, I guess she's been talking about Alex the whole time, but when I said earlier that it's almost ridiculous that she's not more insane than she technically should be after spending 16 years by herself.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I feel like it's because of the way she talks about Alex. Like, Alex is clearly one of the things that's been keeping her going.
True. But also driving her crazy.
Also true.
I mean, that seems to be what Sayid is telling her. That the more she focuses on Alex, the more she's going to pull away from what's actually around her.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting thought. I'm not sure why Sayid tells her... Well, I guess this is why. This is why Sayid tells her that Nadia is dead. Like earlier when she asked. He says she's dead, and we know that he doesn't actually think that.
Right.
So, like, at first when that happened, I didn't understand. But I guess he has to tell himself that, or else he'll just become obsessed with her.
Oh, okay. So you think he's lying intentionally to himself?
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. I never thought about it that way.
Why did you think he said it?
I don't know. I thought he was just lying to her. I was going to ask you that, actually, because I couldn't really make sense of it.
I mean, lying to her, but also lying to himself.
Right.
And this explanation makes a lot of sense. And it, does a lot to connect these two characters. That they're both fixated on someone who is not here.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that he asked her to come with him.
Yeah. I mean, he seems sympathetic towards her.
Right. I don't know if I would have, I don't know if I would have done that in that situation. It's very sad. I mean, she's obviously been very lonely for a long time. Mm-hmm. But then she did just also kind of imply that she killed her whole team because they were quote unquote sick, without going into too many details about that. So that would just make me
kind of worried that this woman's a liability.
Right. Come back to our camp with 48 other people, or however many there are now. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at least he's thinking there's, 40 of them. What could she do? But
true.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. It's definitely true.
I mean, she's clearly very capable. I feel like she could do a lot of damage, but
Yeah. I mean, she trapped Sayid, and Sayid's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone is continuing to enjoy the golf game as Charlie misses his final shot at making par. It's Jack's turn, and everyone begins to make bets on whether he'll make it or not. The stakes begin to raise when Sawyer joins in, offering sunscreen and a flashlight. Everyone stares for a moment, but Kate comes to his aid and takes his proposed bet. Sawyer looks grateful, and the two smile at each other. It's totally adorable. Jack sees it, and he keels over and dies.
Oh my god, this podcast is over.
Just kidding. Randy keels over and dies.
That is not what happened. You totally rewrote that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, it is very sweet.
It's just, I mean, it's nice that Kate made that gesture, because no one else was going to do it.
Yeah, she's pulling him into the cool kids club.
Yeah, he's lucky he has Kate there. I'll just say that.
It's true. He's very lucky. We see a knife hit a tree perfectly. So, of course, this is Locke. Just throwing knives.
Casually.
Yes. Walt watches in awe, just like the rest of us. He wants Locke to teach him his ways. Locke looks at him and hands his young Jedi the knife.
Of course.
Sayid is running through the jungle. It is howly and dark and super scary. He hears whispering, and suddenly, maybe Danielle is not as crazy as he thought. Boom. Episode ends. It's a very abrupt ending for Lost.
Yeah, very abrupt, very unsettling.
Yeah. It's unsettling to see Sayid feeling scared.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love that scene with Locke and Walt.
Yeah, me too. And again, no spoilers, but Michael is going to get real upset about this in a few episodes. And I feel like what was he expecting to happen? He has no right to be angry about any of this. He's the one who just sent Walt off without anything to do. So,
another way to interpret that scene where he sent Walt off was maybe Walt didn't want to play golf with them and wanted to be kind of sent off just because he knew Michael was busy and he could go find Locke.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could interpret it like that.
I mean, it's no better for Michael, but it makes me feel like maybe Walt had some agency over that situation in a weird way.
The actor who plays Walt didn't play it like that. You know, he seemed kind of sad and let down when his dad just turned back and continued golfing with everyone else without him.
Right. Yeah. Poor kid.
Yeah, and the way he found Michael and was like, you left me with Claire and she's asleep.
Yeah. So, how'd you like the episode?
I really like this episode. I like what we learned about Sayid.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like the way I interpret this, I feel like I really know who Sayid is from this point on.
Yeah.
The way he sacrificed himself for Nadia really tells me almost everything I need to know about him, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's his shining moment.
Yeah. How did you feel about it?
The same, really. I really liked it. I really like Sayid and enjoy his story. And I just think the whole thing was really well done. I really liked the golf storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was really fun. And as silly as it was, it still managed to kind of develop some of these relationships, like with Michael and Walt and Kate and Sawyer and Hurley and everyone, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good episode.
Yeah, and it expands the world of the island by a crazy, crazy amount.
Yeah, it really does. Really does. And I think one of the things that we've kind of been noticing so far is Sayid struggling with leadership, struggling to be led. And I think this episode kind of drives that home because he ultimately can't submit to leadership if he disagrees with it. And that's what happens with Nadia. He eventually comes to his own conclusions and he has to defy what he's been told to do.
Right, that's definitely a strong character trait of his.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see it again.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because both in Iraq and on the island, whoever the leader is using Sayid to their advantage. He's like almost a tool because he's so good at interrogating, and it seems that Sayid is the one who pays the moral price. Like, he's the one who has this burden of guilt when he does this interrogating, like he does with Sawyer. Like, he's the one who feels guilty about it. Jack doesn't seem too upset. And Omar definitely doesn't seem guilty for what he's asking Sayid to do. So I feel like it's just like a mirror situation where Sayid is being asked by the leader to do the dirty work, and he's feeling that. Though Jack didn't ask him. Right, Sayid proposed that.
Yeah. That was all Sayid's idea.
Yeah. But regardless of like whose idea it was, it seems like Sayid, I don't know, he seems like a I was going to say he seems like a weapon. But he really does. Like, he feels used in both situations to me.
Yeah, that's true.
And he definitely seems to feel that, like, feels the burden of that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just thinking about what's coming up for him. It's going to be so interesting.
I looked up his name.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what I'd find. Because I couldn't think of anything, on my own.
Right.
Couldn't think of any Sayid references.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if it means anything, but the name Sayid means master.
Master. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting since we've been talking about how he can't be led.
Yeah.
How he's independent.
He's his own master, in a way.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know if that was intentional on their part or not, but I'll go with it.
Yeah. Me too.
So, did you have any, like, thematic things that came up for you?
Well, when I was thinking about this episode as a whole, I kept coming back to the concept of loneliness. It seemed like that was a really big theme they were talking about throughout the episode. Because Sayid, he goes off by himself to punish himself for what he did to Sawyer. And then with the character of Danielle, she's obviously been very lonely for years and years and years.
Yep. And Nadia is alone when she's being interrogated.
Right.
Sawyer feels alone until Kate pulls him into the group.
That's a good point, because it seems like by the end of the episode, I think the show is trying to say that loneliness is not maybe the right punishment or not the right way to go about things. Because Sayid, at the end, he comes to realize I've got to get back to my people. I've got to get back to the group.
Mm-hmm. And he offers to bring her.
Right.
Like to help her with her loneliness.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is the first time we wrote the exact same thing.
Really?
Yeah. My question was, what is the effect of isolation? Which is basically the same thing.
Oh.
Because, yeah, it's every piece of this episode touches on that in some way. Mm-hmm. Like the golf course, really what it does, it's more than a game. It's bringing everyone together.
Right.
Everyone from the caves and the beaches comes to the golf course, and suddenly everybody feels safe because they're all here.
Yeah, that's true. That's so interesting.
We really nailed that one.
We did.
The episode is called Solitary, so I wouldn't call us geniuses or anything. But they really drove home the point.
Yeah. And like I said, they seem to come to the conclusion by the end that, loneliness is not the best thing for anyone in any situation, really.
Sure.
It's like what Jack said a few episodes ago, live together or die alone.
Yeah. So nice.
I know.
Just give everyone a big hug.
That's all they need.
Just give Sawyer a hug, Jack. Everything will be fine.
Can you imagine?
It'd be a very different show if that happened.
It would.
All right, everyone. That will do it for today. While you're waiting for next week's episode, you should totally head on over to iTunes and rate, review, and subscribe there to Freckles and Blondie. Your reviews are so super important and the best way that you can support our show. You can also donate $1 a month or whatever you can afford on our Patreon page. Just look for Freckles and Blondie. And last but not least, we are on social media, mostly Instagram with a little Facebook in there. Just search for Freckles and Blondie or our username, which is @TheLostPodcast. We love your feedback. We've been getting some lately, and it just makes me so happy to hear what you guys are thinking.
Me too.
It's like the best. If you have questions or topics or like anything you want us to talk about, just let us know, and we would love to address them. You can talk to us via social media or through our emails. We're Tiffany and Randy at thelostpodcast.com. And that is all the stuff. Tune in next week. We'll be discussing the 10th episode of Lost, Raised by Another, which is all about Claire. That will be nice. I assume that a Claire episode will be a little more light and fun, but I don't know.
Oh, no.
I don't remember.
I remember this episode so clearly. Things get so crazy in this episode.
Oh, man. I mean, that's exciting, but at the same time, I don't know. I just always expect something refreshing from Claire after the peanut butter incident.
I know. I mean, it might have those moments, but...
She's so sweet and lovely.
Yeah. This episode is like a punch in the face from what I remember. It's great.
You would think with how many times I've seen Lost that I would remember these episodes more clearly, but it's all just like one long story to me.
Yeah, that's so funny. I know the first season of the show so incredibly well. As we get into the later seasons, that's when I start to forget. But
yeah, I definitely know the beginning better, so it's going to be a mess later on.
Yep.
So until next week, guys, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randy.
And this has been Freckles and Blondie.